Well, thank you for your patience, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Fred Sandor, and I'm the Investment Service Director with Equity Analysts here at CLAS. And today I'm joined with our Director of Analytics, as well as Ben, Alan, and Mitch, who are on the Investment Services team as well. The purpose of today's call really is twofold. The first is to introduce you to CLAS, tell you a little bit more about us. And second, I think really the reason why you're here is hopefully to learn some more information about some market insights that we have that Taylor is going to share with you. As most of you know, CLAS specializes in measuring vendor performance in healthcare IT. It started about 15 years ago when one of our founders, Kent Gale, found that no one was really measuring vendor performance and reporting back to the providers as to which vendors were doing really good and which ones were really struggling. And hence a company was born. I guess you could say in a way we're a very mission-oriented organization. Our goal is to find out the truth, sort of like Consumer Reports in a way, but unlike Consumer Reports, we don't buy products and test them and report our opinion. The opinions are coming directly through the voice of the providers that we interview. So kind of unique in that way. To say that we are extremely passionate about our work, I think would also be an understatement. It's really built into our DNA, our CLAS culture here, as well as it's what we do on a daily basis. Currently, we conduct about 30,000 interviews a year, so you know, which literally equates to millions and millions of reference and historical reference data points in our system. To me, it gives us kind of a unique seat at the table regarding our understanding of what providers are really thinking. Through our relationships, we come to know which vendors are really doing well, which ones are struggling. We also hear about vendors that are up for replacement, who our providers are thinking about moving to, and we also learn the challenges and solutions that they're starting to look at to help them within their organizations. Again, I think it's a wealth of needle-moving, actionable data with respects to vendors and their future trending. We also know that you can't get this kind of data by merely pushing out email surveys. I think that's what truly makes us different here at CLAS. It's totally relationship-driven, which truly differentiates us in the marketplace. Regarding our providers' reach, today we're working with about 4,500 hospitals, 3,000 physician offices and clinics throughout North America. We're also starting to expand our footprint internationally as well, as providers from across the pond are asking us for help in making their decisions. So again, continue to grow as a company. So in case you're wondering why C-suite providers might want to spend time with CLAS on the phone, two reasons I can think of. First and foremost, because they trust us. They trust our research data, and they're using it to make their buying decisions. Secondly, in exchange for their time, we pretty much give them the keys to the kingdom. We give them free access to the performance database, all the reports that we publish throughout the year, which there's about 60 of them, and access to our research team, so if they have questions they want to call and talk to someone who's market segment specific, they can certainly do that. Today we cover about 130 different market segments. Let's see, about 900 different products, I would say, in areas of software, medical imaging, and medical equipment, professional services, and infrastructure. Lastly, to make sure that we are in perfect alignment with providers, CLAS has also established a CLAS advisory board of recognized HIT leaders and some of the top healthcare organizations here in the U.S. Some of the names you probably know, names like Russ Branzell, who's the new Chime CEO, Ed Marks, Texas Health CIO, Rick Schooler, Orlando Health CIO, to name a few. Their sole mission really is to assist us in making sure our data correctly echoes the provider's voice and to also help guide our research efforts. Now, I'd like to turn time over to Taylor, who's got some market insights to share with you. Thanks, Taylor.
No, that's great, Fred. I appreciate the introduction around CLAS and what we do. As Fred talks about the passion and how much we care about what we do, that's why these people on this slide matter so much. So I actually just 10 minutes ago got off the phone with one of the members of our advisory board and had about a half-an-hour perspective around some key industry events, ICD-10, computer-assisted coding technology, where is that moving, what's making sense, is this individual is partnering with a couple of the key firms out there, and is a beta partner, is able to give us some great perspective. So these individuals we rely on a lot, as we do rely on the 1,000 or so relationships that we have with CIOs across the country. So it is wonderful for us to be able to rub shoulders with these individuals. As the lead analytics guy here at class, I want to walk through some of what does our data look like, and what value does it bring, and why does it make sense to use class data as a reference point along with all the other reference points that you're using out there. So just I want to walk through real quick what it makes it, what the process is in terms of us getting our data. We work with a lot of decision makers, and I'm a statistician. Actually, statistically, it is easier for us to get a CIO or an executive on the phone than it is to get an IT manager on the phone. And the reason why is because with almost every big health system in the country, these executives know that when we get on the phone, we're sharing back information with them. And so if I have a call with a CIO or a CFO or a CEO, the first 10 minutes or so of the call is me talking to them about what decisions they're making, what information we can get them. And I usually hand them a couple of our class reports, by the time that we're done. And then for the next 20 to 50 minutes or so, they're going to give us a download about the vendors that they're working with and what's going on with them there. And really neat conversations. The wonderful part is that we're hearing the stories of everything that's going on, and then we say, okay, we need to ask you to quantify what you're telling us and give us some actual ratings. We have several different vehicles in terms of how are we taking this information down. There's some yes/no questions that make a big difference, that matter a lot probably to the audience that we're working with today. We ask questions like, is this product part of your long-term plans? Essentially, are you looking to replace this product? Another question that we're asking is, would you buy this product again? So a good feel for loyalty. We have a lot of other rating questions, such as how likely essentially a net promoter question, how likely are you to recommend this product to a friend or peer? And then some other questions that matter to us a lot, such as one question that we watch very closely is, rate how well your vendor delivers new technology that meets your needs. And we found a very strong link between that question and future sales and retention for different vendors. So there's a lot of these questions that matter a lot. And so this quantitative feedback, which anyone who has access to our database has access to a lot of this quantitative feedback, where you can go online. So for instance, the perspective that you see online, you can go trend how's a certain vendor doing compared to the rest of the competition out there? What are their strengths or their weaknesses? Wow, this vendor right here, customers rate them pretty low as far as them getting their money's worth in terms of the example that we have. You can see in the top left box here. Okay, so an Epic rates an 89. So essentially, almost every one of their customers that we run into has good and very good things to say about them. So they have this kind of A- type of grade from their customers. Well, compare that to an Allscripts right now who's struggling with kind of more of a C- kind of D+ type of grade on average from their customers. And then you can track and see how that's changing over time. So this quantification of the perspective is really important. Adding on top of that, we have a lot of qualitative feedback. So the box in your top right, as we get on these conversations, we're recording verbatim the comments that these executives are giving us. We have thousands and thousands of transcripts, tens of thousands of transcripts from all of these calls where they're walking through on a product basis what they're seeing, and then they're walking through in the industry what they're seeing. So for instance, you can see here some comments, those are pretty recent, they just barely came in about Cerner Millennium, and talking about what are we seeing. The Cerner Millennium is doing okay, but they're really expensive for us, and that's hard every time that they want to have their hand on our wallet. So you can get some real perspectives from real customers, and the wonderful thing here is that these customers know that we almost would die first before we reveal who they are. And because we believe in that anonymity, and we have 15 years of doing that, customers are extremely candid with us. So you have some very real feedback. Oftentimes this makes vendors fairly frustrated with us, which sort of makes us smile because we just believe in putting the real truth out there and being extremely candid.
Taylor, this is Alan. So just a comment on this piece with the commentary. So, it's an hour's worth of commentary. Let's say it's an average of 50 comments, 2,300 of these a month times 15 years. All comments are basically parsed and tagged based upon positive and negative. You have hundreds of thousands, over 1 million comments in there over a long period of time. Here's the key on this. A lot of times you'll hear and see, let's say it's April, probably in May, probably start getting comments that say, hey, our renewal's up for product X. We're thinking of switching to this because the service has been awful. Those are the types of, that's the kind of the gold that we have in the comments here.
In addition to what you just said, another key thing that you can use these comments for is to gauge recent events. So I routinely go into these comment pages and I search for the name of a new CEO or a CEO through the customer comments. And if you go in right now into our database and look in All Scripts Sunrise Clinical Manager and search for the name Paul Black, you'll probably see 7 or 8 comments that have come in recently with customers talking about their experiences with Paul Black. And I, having just recently done this, I looked through, one customer saying, hey, I think that this guy's pretty upfront. Another customer saying, hey, I met with him, and this wasn't quite as good of a meeting as I hoped for. But lots of specifics, or if there's a recent industry event, you can search for some of those words. So there's a lot of things that we do with those comments. Alan, I appreciate that these matter to us so much. In addition to the comments, so building on top of the comments and the ratings, Class also has built, and this is part of the standard subscription that we put out there, has built an alerts engine. And this is a statistical engine that's going through, it's searching through the comments, so we have this comment analytics engine. It's also searching through some of the ratings, and it flags to our analysts about 400, every month it flags to our analysts about 400 possible alerts that we might want to make the industry aware of. And our analysts go through and they sort through what's real and what's maybe not very real, and we end up writing about 80 alerts a month that we're publishing out to the industry, saying things such as, hey, product X has 27% of their customer base that's looking to move. And, obviously providers care a lot about that, but these alerts really also matter. They're talking about, very significant happenings, new versions, changes in customer satisfaction with service and support, and these are great leading indicators to some of the performance that's going to come down the road. Altogether, I actually, marketing put together this slide for us, and I told Mitch in our marketing team that I was going to make fun of it a little bit. So here's the marketing summary as to why this matters and why what we bring matters. But I'm just going to put a little bit of a personal spin on this. I have been probably the most involved analyst in working with some of the firms that we have worked with in terms of sharing industry insights. I am sometimes personally shocked and frustrated about things that I hear different vendors are saying out there on their analyst relation calls. And there's a number of things that I see every now and then that make me pretty frustrated, that are close to outright lies, right there on the line between an outright lie, but they're definitely misleading. The reason why I care about doing this is that we believe here at Class that there needs to be transparency, that there needs to be clarity on the market, and that it helps everyone. And we do not want anyone to be able to overrepresent what they're doing, because it doesn't do any good for anybody, and it doesn't do good for those who you represent as investors. So our goal really is to be able to cut through the marketing material, cut through what people are saying out there, and to talk about the reality of what's really going on. So, in summary, if we can talk about anything that we bring, let's just talk about the reality of what's going on. And that's our goal as we work with you.
That makes some vendors probably pretty happy, huh?
Yeah, so Class averages maybe 1 to 2 lawsuits a year, and we know that we're going to do that as vendors get pretty frustrated. You can imagine if Class puts out a report on a vendor who is going through an IPO, and we put out a report talking about some of the frustrations of their customers, you can imagine the frustration, the anger that builds. But for us, that's why we were started, and these are the waters that we've chosen to swim in, and this is what we feel passionately about, is saying the truth no matter what. So one quick example in terms of what do we, how could you use some of this? Let's take, for instance, some of the alerts that we've been putting out since, through 2011 until recently, just take the year of 2011, and let's map up some of those alerts to McKesson stock price. Now, we're not as arrogant to think that that we have a huge impact on the stock price, our company itself, but we do believe that we're watching what customers are saying and that we're seeing some of these things early. And so you can see some of these alerts that are coming out. And McKesson, this is a great example because the year 2011 for McKesson was this highly volatile year where emotions were high, things were changing quickly, and it was interesting to us as we said, I wonder if we could map up some of the alerts that we're putting out just to the stock price and see how these kind of mapped, because it felt like that there was a mapping there, and to see some of this, to see some of this correlation was very interesting for us. So, the last 20 minutes we've talked about a lot of the things that we feel that we can bring and that make sense in a relationship between ourselves and you. We wanted to talk through what we think oftentimes is one of the most valuable pieces of the relationship, which is the analyst calls that we do with many of those who have a partnership with us. Today I'm going to walk through some of the areas of my greatest competency personally. So I'm going to be your analyst on this call. My greatest competency is around some of the core EMR, ambulatory EMR, some of those areas, and health information exchanges, ACL, population health. And so I'm going to walk through a few questions that we're hearing from other analyst firms being brought to us, and walk through and just give some examples of what are we hearing out there, and answer a few questions that are common out there in the industry. One of the first questions that we're asked with most of those who we're working with is a question around Cerner and Epic. The industry perspective as we speak to providers today is those are the two market leaders, and then there's probably someone else. And a huge question is, even though Cerner and Epic are the market leaders, Epic is consistently winning a lot more business than Cerner is. And the question is Cerner going to be able to catch up and gain on Epic and start to split this wide open? So in order to answer this question, KLAS watches every hospital deal. So every time a hospital contracts for a new EMR, KLAS is watching that, and we do not just a sampling, but a full census every year of all of the hospital deals for the overall EMR. And on the inpatient side, that accounts to over 400 deals that have gone on in the last few years, last 2 years. And we looked through those 400 deals, and we looked for cases where a customer was bringing in both Cerner and Epic side by side, and Cerner was winning over Epic. And there was definitely a few cases of that, but something that we found was every single time that Cerner beat Epic, they beat them on price, not on functionality and capability. Obviously, that's not the position where you want to be as Cerner. You don't want to be winning every deal that you win against Epic. You don't want to be winning based on price. And so the question is Cerner getting to the point where they can actually start winning some deals not based on price? As Fred mentioned, customers who are looking to make a decision come to us all the time. And that's usually the beginning of our phone calls with these folks. So we know a lot of the decisions that are happening out there in the market. And as customers come to us, they walk through, hey, here's who I'm looking at, here's who I'm leaning towards. And we did a quick census of 197 deals that are still coming down the pipeline where there's some sort of decision being made. So these are deals, a lot of these are in the next 2 years. Some of these might be as many as 3 or 4 years out. And we're actually doing a really fun study right now where we're looking at all of these, looking at timelines, et cetera. But you've got any deal that is either from the infancy of the organization is just starting to look at this, or hey, we're getting close to pulling the trigger. And we looked at, you've got the legend here on the bottom right. That's the color is the current vendor. Who is the current vendor today? And then the bars are representations of who is going to win the business. Now you can see the Epic's bar is very substantial. and they're winning a lot of business from a lot of different other vendors. So we continue to see Epic having a lot of momentum. I don't think that we've seen any big shift in Epic momentum. But something that we are noticing more and more is that Cerner is becoming more and more competitive in these deals. So about 3 years ago, Epic blew the doors off the market and really started beating everyone consistently because they had this integrated inpatient, outpatient product that was safe and was clean to go to. And Cerner was weak on the outpatient, and it really made Cerner uncompetitive in a lot of cases. We continue to see Epic be very strong against Cerner, but something that we're noticing is more and more of these deals, Cerner is being brought in as kind of the bridesmaid, just a vendor to compare against and to mark off so that you can go by Epic. And more of these deals, we're hearing customers say, wow, actually Cerner surprised us with how good they were. They surprised us with their fuzzy logic reporting. They surprised us with their device connectivity. They surprised us with how well they demoed and the ease of use of some of their products. And Cerner is becoming a harder person to quickly mark off your list. We think that Cerner is on track to start winning some of these competitive deals in the next year or two, and to make this market again truly competitive. So there's some good things that they're doing, and right now another great just a side note with Cerner is that we are seeing them hold on to almost all of their customers. So they have very strong retention right now. Now, Fred is watching our questions line as we walk through some of these. If anybody has any questions, please send them through, and we'll answer them as we walk through some of these questions. And we're happy to keep you anonymous if you throw out a question. And I think, Fred, do we have any that's come across?
Yeah, Taylor, we actually do. First question is, what is the #1 reason why Epic is beating Cerner?
No, that's a good question. So just the clarity around that question, there's a lot of different reasons. There's with culture and everything else, but the #1 reason why Epic is beating Cerner is because they have the integrated ambulatory that works well. There's a number of other reasons. They've got a really good implementation methodology and some other things, but the deal clincher as to why Epic continues to beat Cerner over and over again is that integrated ambulatory. They just were the fastest to market with a strong inpatient and a strong outpatient that were all the way integrated.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
And we appreciate that one to send through. So please, yeah, continue to send through any questions that you have. Let's jump into to question 2. Athena Health. So this is a question that we get. So for instance, we picked the Cerner question because we get asked a lot about these core vendors that we watch a lot of times. Athena Health is a good example of one of these vendors that's very much up and coming. And when you have an up and coming vendor, it can be a high risk or high reward situation as you invest in an up and coming vendor. It's hard for the market, obviously, to know, once these guys really plane out and grow to where they're expected to grow, who are they going to be and how big are they going to be when they grow up? And so how real is what they're doing for customers today? And I wanted, this slide here is some of the key performance indicators that KLAS tracks. So let me just bring your attention up to the top of the list. In the last 12 months, KLAS has spoken to 77 respondents about Athena Health and how well they like it. Compare that to the market, to the ambulatory EMR market that we're surveying, to the 2,200 interviews that we've had in the market overall. And so a good reference point on Athena, a good reference point against the rest of the market. As you walk through some of these, and I'll walk through a few of these key performance indicators, we see Athena as being very strong in every one of these. So sometimes we see these vendors that pop up that have a lot of momentum and are moving pretty well, and out in the industry, and we're looking at them saying, wow, they really are kind of a little bit hollow. They're not as strong as maybe everybody thinks that they really are. Their business model is not as strong. Their customer satisfaction and the retention underneath the surface is not as strong. And really, these are some of these vendors that pop up this way just have really great marketing, but they're long-term. They're not building a really great long-term business. Athena is building a very solid business model. As we've interviewed these 77 customers, we only found 3% who are looking at replacing Athena. And that is a very low number compared to about 14% for the market at large. And those 3%, they weren't really frustrated with Athena. There was just one of those practices was shutting down. Anyway, the bottom line is that that there was not that they are doing a great job holding on to their customers. As you look at the overall satisfaction score, which is the third down from the top, they have much higher satisfaction than the rest of the market. You look at their trending, their satisfaction score is going up, and the satisfaction for the market has rebounded a little bit recently. But if you look at a larger window, over the past about 3 years, the satisfaction for the market has gone down by around 4 points. What does that mean? What that means is that that the market is making this huge land grab, and all of these, you have many big vendors who are stumbling and falling in their delivery to customers, where Athena just keeps doing better and better, and their development is really strong. We can look at their newly live customers, and their newly live customers are consistently much more satisfied than newly live customers for other competitors. And probably one of the things that we want to look at here the most is the KLAS Fingerprint, which is a proprietary tool that we use that looks at the statistical relation between how customers are rating a product and where new sales and retention go in the future. And it's something that requires a little bit more explanations. But the bottom line is that we can look at how customers are rating, and we have a pretty good feel for how real is this, and is this momentum that's going to continue based on the way that some of those ratings are coming in. So we have a lot of metrics that we're looking at underneath the surface, and the bottom line with Athena is all of those metrics look good. So they're doing some really good things. Bottom line, they're doing some really good things out there in the market. Brett, I've got a question that's coming across here that talking about Athena's EMR sales were reported to be a little bit slow in the beginning. So I assume that it's being asked when they launched their EMR into 2010, beginning of 2011, in comparison to some of the other vendors. How concerning is that?
Yeah, go ahead, Tiller.
That's a great question. So I know that some of the publicly reported numbers were a little bit slow in terms of how many new sales they had. As we look at that, we think that that's a really good sign. Their sales numbers are starting to move up at a pretty good clip now. But in the beginning, they were slow, and I think that they were careful to make sure that what they rolled out was really good. And as we talk to customers and non-customers, Athena Health's name is a really solid name out there in the industry. There's a feeling that they deliver quality and they consistently deliver quality. It's probably one of the strongest HIT names behind an Epic or some of those other really strong names out there in the industry. So they have been careful in the way that they rolled this out, and now that they're really starting to speed up, they're doing so at an even better, they're doing it at an increased pace and with better delivery.
Alan, so comment on that, kind of leading indicator, go forward, new sales production, what is their organic growth related to this? Probably the statistically most valid leading indicators, new go-live satisfaction and evangelism. If you think about that, those go hand in hand. It's like you don't want your new car to break when it drives off the lot. These people are hospitals who just bought a car that normally breaks when it gets off the lot. It doesn't. They tell their friends about it. So if you look at those 2 points, that's a pretty strong indicator that their pending sales in the next budget cycle are going to be very strong.
That's a really great point, Alan. And we've looked at the numbers and quantified who's the loudest of your customer base, and we can quantify that based on how does what your customers are saying impact the perception of the rest of the market. And we've quantified that your newly live customers is your loudest subset of the customer base, which is why we watch that group, as Alan is saying, why we watch that group so closely. And it makes a lot of sense. They're heavily emotionally invested, and they're out there telling customers, I just bought and here's my experience. And the great thing is with Athena, there's almost no customers who are having a really bad experience after they buy this, and almost all of them are above average satisfied.
So here's a question.
Oh, great.
It says, I guess for Athena Health, Athena Health always says their awareness levels are low. Do you agree, disagree?
Athena's not a TMZ kind of, consumer level brand name, but to the extent that brands are well known within the market, I think you expressed that, which is that to the hospital, senior executives and the people making decisions on buying healthcare IT products, the awareness of Athena is quite high.
But let me say this. There are vendors who we see their awareness level. Okay, that's a great term. I just making sure that we answer the right question. There are vendors where we see the awareness level ballooning at a pretty incredible pace. The last two vendors on the ambulatory side that where I saw the awareness level go up very quickly was about 5 years ago with ECW. We saw eClinicalWorks. We saw a vendor that had almost no mind share go to within about 2 years. They were in most of the big deals that were happening out there in the market. And we also saw Greenway, where their mind share grew pretty quickly, and then they hit some of these big enterprise deals where they tried to play in, and they stumbled and fell, and then their mind share has taken a little bit of a step back, and they're kind of considered a small practice player. Athena is starting to move up into some of these big practices. They've had a couple small stumbles. They've had some response time issues with a couple of them, but they've had a lot of them that have been very, very successful. So, for instance, there's a CIO that I work with at one of the largest health systems in the country, and they rolled out Athena Health to 800 of their non-owned physicians. And the feedback was not just good, it was fantastic. This CIO just couldn't speak enough good about how excited he was, and what a good win. It looked so good for him to have been able to roll out Athena to 300 doctors in 1 month. And anybody who does this, that's the equivalent of taking like 30 college credits in a semester. I mean, that is just, it is so much work, and it's unbelievable that you could pull that off. And he said it just went off flawlessly. So they're starting to do some of these things, like really do well. I expect to see their awareness level grow quite a bit, and we're already seeing it grow quite a bit.
So here's another question. On Athena, what about not offering a perpetual license? Some clients still want this, right? Others, like Greenway, offer perpetual and cloud. Does that not limit Athena?
That is a fantastic question. There is a perspective that clinicians and healthcare cares a lot more about technology than they actually do. So yes, there are times where technology holds you back, but oftentimes providers just want things to work, which is the reason why healthcare is like the only industry where you still have some people who are using a beeper, for heaven's sakes. At least it was a couple years ago, right? And they just want something that's reliable and that works. Athena has done, in my estimation, so I'm putting my perspective over top all the data that we have, I think that they have probably put out the strongest SaaS product, ambulatory EMR SaaS product on the market today. And if not, they're definitely in the running. It has been solid. Every month, customers get a new update, and it also has been fairly flexible. A lot of times, some of these SaaS offerings are very unflexible. And so, yeah, is there a segment of the population, a small segment of the population, that might say, Athena's not for us because we don't want to do this hosted thing? Absolutely. But the mindset for customers is more around, I just want to see that it works. And as customers go out and they speak to others and they hear that it's working so well for them, if CIOs communicate with each other and they say, yeah, the SaaS actually was great for us because the upgrades just keep rolling out, it's much better on the upside than it is on the downside. And I think that Athena is doing some great things. They're using their technology to be disruptive instead of just using it to sell or to put in their brochures. And so their technology, the way that they're rolling it out, brings them much more momentum than it hurts in today's sales.
And good code as well, huh?
Yeah, we've got about 60% of buyers today who are looking for or strongly open to a cloud hosted offering, and then you've got another 30% or so who are open to it. So the truth is that the vast majority of the market today is open to looking at some sort of cloud offering. You only have a small portion of the potential customer base out there, and we interview about 400 ambulatory EMR deals that are happening in the moment. We interview about 400 a year, so we're watching that pretty closely. And the significant majority, especially in the larger end of deals, the significant majority is very open to some sort of hosted deal. Great question.
And that's it on that one.
Great questions. One question that we get asked pretty often is there's some sort of industry event or maybe even a buzzword, and that there's talk of, hey, how real is this? Does this really make a difference, or should we just ignore this and just keep going on as normal? And one of the most recent ones to pop up, any of you who are at HIMSS probably heard about the Commonwealth Health Alliance, where you've got a number of players Athena included, Greenway, McKesson, Allscripts, Cerner, who all got up on stage together, and I'm going to kind of make fun of it a little bit, sang kumbaya, right? Locked arm in arm and said, hey, we're going to be able to share information and share health information all back and forth. So rather than pass a judgment on ourselves, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on these type of things, the first thing that we wanted to do was go to our provider friends, which they were in abundance at HIMSS, obviously, and to say, hey, what do you think about Commonwealth? And get their perspective. And overwhelmingly, this is the perspective that we heard. So I could have taken, this is a comment from one customer, but I could have put 10 more up here, perspectives that we received just immediately at HIMSS. As we go up and we talk to a CIO who is using McKesson, who has McKesson in his hospital, and I heard the very same thing from some Allscripts CIOs who said, my vendor has no business being up there. I have multiple products, their own product, walk up on stage and say that they're going to be able to share information across all these different vendors. That's not too surprising. Does it significantly hurt the credibility of any of the vendors on that stage? Probably not that much, because there's kind of a feeling with a lot of these vendors that, hey, vendors are vendors and they do what they have to do, and some of that is a song and dance. In a few cases, definitely it does hurt them. Does it help them? Overwhelmingly, providers don't give this a lot of credence or believe that this is a game changer at all. We haven't heard it really come up after HIMSS at all from providers. They don't care about it at all. So this has probably only done damage and has done no good yet.
Is that because they just don't expect that to happen, or that's not possible? Or
that's exactly right. So that the providers have been conditioned that integrating big, complex clinical systems is just not really that possible. They have seen the GEs and the McKessons and the Allscripts of the world who have huge incentives to be able to bring their systems together and integrate multiple big, complex systems, and have not been able to do it. And so more and more so, customers say, I think that there's some sort of maybe CCD, care record sharing that can happen with the health information exchange. There's a number of things that can happen, but real integration, really sharing data back and forth, they've been conditioned to not believe that it's really that possible. And on paper, I think that this is possible, but again and again, where you have a vendor whose back is against the wall and they really need to integrate everything, they've shown that this is almost always too hard to do. So the perspective from providers is that there's almost no credence on this. Any other questions that are coming across? I think we have one there, Fred.
Yeah. The question is, which vendors part of Commonwealth have shown the strongest interoperability thus far?
That's a good question. So you've got, and maybe I'll expand that even to just some of the other key vendors out there in the industry, right? You've got some vendors like an Allscripts who've talked a lot about integration, who've talked a lot about interoperability. Now, the question that we have in class is, well, how real is this? So let's take Allscripts on their word and go ask and take maybe the case study that they put out there. So when Allscripts came out a couple years ago with their Helios platform, which was all about interoperability and sharing data, one of their key examples was how surgical information systems was going to be able to tie in really closely and connect in with Allscripts. Here we are 2 years out, and the number one complaint consistently from customers using SIS and Allscripts, if we go speak to their surgery department, the number one complaint is, I have barely any integration between these two. So you have some vendors out there that are talking a lot about integration who are not delivering on it very much. Interestingly enough, there's no strong leaders. So we're talking about the tallest pygmy here, but there's no strong leaders as far as really sharing a lot of data. Obviously, Relay Health does that for a living, but if you talk about some of these other players, the vendor who leads right now in this is not on this slide, and it's Siemens. Siemens has an architecture that allows for some of the best integration in the market right now. Now, Siemens has some other challenges which make it so that great strength is not able to really be internalized by a lot of customers, and it doesn't matter. It's negated because of some of the other weaknesses that they have. But Siemens architecture is real. We validated it in a number of cases, and interestingly enough, best-of-breed solutions in Siemens hospitals consistently have higher satisfaction scores because they're able to integrate in better. So SIS has a partnership with Siemens, and I think that there's a number of SIS organizations that are already starting to see some of that integration come to fruition. So there is a difference between vendors with integration, and but there's not a huge difference, I think you could say. Any other questions, Mitch?
Is CPSI really not on the map? And I believe that relates to the next page, doesn't it?
No, let's answer this now. CPSI, just a quick spiel, and we can go on a lot more about this. CPSI is in a tight situation right now, in large part because I'm not convinced that they believe that they are in a tight situation. So they are winning some deals, and there's some here that's probably not showing up because this sampling here is more geared towards larger hospitals and larger organizations, right? But you're right, they're not showing up a lot in these deals. They have recently grown quite a bit. The real struggle right now is that if you look at the customer base, about 40% of CPSI's customers say we wouldn't buy this product again. Now, only about 15% of all customers say that they have any plans to move from CPSI. So you have this big portion of customers that just really feel stuck, that are not really very happy with CPSI. The most common complaint from customers with CPSI is they're not meeting our needs. They're focusing so much on getting new business. And that's, as we talk about, as Alan brings up some of those new go-lives, that's really starting to hurt CPSI. And we're starting to see that happen a little bit. And I think that over the next couple of years, you're going to see it a lot more, where there's been so many bad CPSI go-lives out there that potential customers are seeing those, and they're standing as warning signs out there of, hey, look, CPSI is not a very sure bet. You may not get your money's worth on going with this. This might be a headache.
The other thing to keep in consideration is that CPSI is playing at the low end of the market, and the low end of the market are the smaller bed size. Typically, those facilities are looking at being potentially acquired, or if they're in regionally strategic areas. So large accountable care organizations that are looking to extend their presence may displace it with a Cerner or an Epic or Meditech or something that's typically at a larger IDN.
Good point, Ben. That's exactly the call I had yesterday with a smaller organization that is rolling and getting out of CPSI, going into Epic, because they're rolled into a bigger organization now.
You know, and not having worked with CPSI personally, I can say this. A lot of vendors that we work with maybe don't realize the situation that they're in and that they're burning future sales bridges, because ARRA and stimulus is bringing so much current business to them, and so they're definitely growing in a lot of the things that they're doing, but they're not realizing that they're hurting their name and their perception out there in the industry. So just one last evidence around CPSI. You have a vendor called Razor Insights that's really started to come on to the market, and they're really only selling to very small hospitals. But these guys have really no track record. They're doing pretty good, but why would you pick a Razor Insights over a CPSI? Well, you've heard so many bad things about CPSI that you say, and you don't really feel like you have a lot of other options, and you say, you know, maybe these Razor Insights guys are going to be able to do a better job. So you'd rather pick the unsure option than the option that feels like it's been consistently bad. And so CPSI has definitely opened up the door. Healthline, the CPSI, and HMS, they've opened up the door for new competitors.
So next question, same topic, says, why is Allscripts not mentioned as a winner on this chart? Does it mean no one is considering them?
Of 197 decisions, there was only one organization that said that they were really considering Allscripts, and they didn't have Allscripts at the top of their list. So yes, that is what it means. Allscripts is in a situation right now where there's so much uncertainty, there's so many problems that it just doesn't feel safe to go consider them right now. Plus, they have some of the holes with ambulatory and everything else. Now, can that change in the future? Absolutely. If Allscripts takes their current knowledge, they start to build back up a steady track record, and they put out an integrated, strong ambulatory offering. Night turns today, everything gets better. You know, the bees start buzzing and the flowers start blooming, and Allscripts can sell again. But right now, they are in a very tight situation. Yep.
And as a follow-up question to that, something you just answered, it says, any changes under new leadership that could signal new wins going forward for Allscripts?
You know, we are still in a state of limbo, and we're going to be, no matter, I mean, we could have put, I don't know, Moses in there. We could have put in, you know, anybody in there who could be doing miracles in that company, and it's still too early for any customers to really believe what's going on. Paul Black is a credible leader, and most customers have had an average to above average interaction with Paul Black, but they're highly skeptical because of the challenges that Allscripts faces, and they have been through this so many times. It's almost like Allscripts has cried wolf too many times of, hey, it's going to get better, hey, it's going to get better, it's right around the corner, and they're tired of it. So they're looking more for the realization of the things that are being promised by Allscripts rather than taking the word of a new leader who's coming in.
And also, the same listener is saying that sample size of 197, when was that data captured?
We put that together over the last 4 months, but these are folks that we've spoken to. Yeah, these are pretty much anybody that we've spoken to in the last 12 months, I think you could say. Deals that we could see coming down the pipeline just that we've spoken to in the last 12 months.
Okay. And then last question on that slide and topic is about their technology. Let's see. It says, what about the constant dig on Epic about their systems not sharing information? Cerner often talks about their technology being antiquated and less able to work in an ACO model. Do you believe that, or is that competitor hype against Epic?
Great question. So let me attack this from two sides. We recently worked with a big health system that was making a decision. And as part of that, class brought in individuals who were very strong users of a Siemens, of a Cerner, of an Epic. And this organization was very worried about decision support and some of those type of things that they, building in alerts and doing some of those type of things, which would be very important in an ACL model. Epic didn't do horrible as far as that goes. So the Epic shots that came in and consulting on this said, hey, look, we can do this, but we do need some Epic help on this. Siemens was the one who had the best showing as far as this goes, and Cerner was okay. So there is some basis to some of the technology claims, but there's not nearly as much basis as a lot of the market would like you to point to. I spoke to one of Epic's largest organizations a little bit ago, and I said, I actually on this topic, I spoke to them, and I said, what's the deal with cache? Is that a weakness for Epic? And this was a CMIO who's worked with them for 15 years. He said, you know what's interesting? He says, I keep hearing that cache is a weakness, but I actually think it's one of the greatest strengths that Epic brings. Cache allows for great response time. It allows for really high stability. It allows for some of the things that have helped Epic become Epic. So are there is there some complexity that comes with their database and some of their technology? Absolutely. Is it overhyped by competitors in terms of the drawback that it is? Absolutely, which is why when you have a big organization that's going in and making a decision and they're looking at all the different options in the market, they go through and do deep technology reviews, and these are really smart people who do deep technology reviews with Epic, and we've never seen one of those deep technology reviews turn off a customer where they walk away and say, oh, this is not going to work.
All right, that's the questions for now. We have about 10 minutes left. Taylor, what direction do you want to take things?
Maybe let's hit the last question that we have planned on, and hopefully the questions coming in. Hopefully there's some great value to those of you who've jumped on the phone, and we're glad that you've been able to give us your time. So hopefully we've given you back some great value, some good answers to some of the things that you care about out there. Let's talk HIE here. This is a huge buzzword out in the industry and has been for a couple of years. Let's talk about where the HIE market is going. This HIE market is an interesting market to watch because you've got a market that is in some ways was in its infancy just 4 years ago, and because of government regulations, it's been required. It's being forced to grow up very quickly. And the question is what is it going to grow up into? There's a lot of talk of, are these vendors actually producing the technology that needs to be produced out there in the market? And let me give an explanation of that. Think in some ways of a health information exchange as the email with like America Online in the olden days, right? And so if I wanted to email Mitch, we both had to be on America Online, and then we could send emails or messages back and forth, right? Well, email evolves to this point where now you don't really need that hub of America Online to send emails. You can now send direct kind of peer-to-peer, my server to your server, and I can send emails to anybody, and it doesn't matter. That hub doesn't matter. That hub becomes irrelevant. And a company like America Online just goes away. So the question, in some ways, the question here is that the same thing going to happen here with health information exchanges? Where is this developing? Are we going to see some of these vendors just go away? And in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. So let's answer why that is and what the difference is here. In some ways, yes, there are vendors who are starting to show that you can have a non-hub model and that it works pretty well. The key vendor to keep your eye on that's showing a non-hub model would be Epic. Epic has a really strong health information exchange between all of their organizations who are turning it on, and it's really easy to turn on. And actually, they've turned this on at over 10 organizations who are non-Epic hospitals and who are part of this exchange now. And so it's picking up a lot of steam. And to the question that was asked before, Epic can't share data. Well, they're showing that they're sharing data, and they're doing it as well as any other key vendor out there with this exchange. But the really important thing is to realize that this is not a hub model. The way that Epic is turning this on is not a hub model. It is, you essentially kind of have a directory, and so if a patient comes in your emergency department and they were seen in another state and that state is on that directory, you can hurry, look up, and you can get the records kind of directly from them. And then you hold those in a different place in your database. But the reason why Epic is so important to watch is because they're one of the first views of this kind of non-hub model and how does this work. Medicity is doing some work as far as kind of building out a non-hub model also. So there's definitely some work in terms of some of these non-hub models. The hub model, though, still makes a lot of sense when you're talking about accountable care and being able to aggregate data all together, which not all of these health information exchanges are doing. So here's the growth of the HIEs and how quickly we're validating them. So we're seeing a lot of HIE growth out there. And then from our most recent health information exchange report that just published 6 months ago, here's a perspective of some of the vendors out there in the market who either bring some really strong technology and would be in a good position to, if the hub model goes away with health information exchanges, to take their current technology stack and play a key role in accountable care organizations by aggregating data together so that you could do analytics and everything else on top of that. So, for instance, let's compare a DB Motion, who Allscripts recently acquired, which was probably a pretty good acquisition, frankly. Let's compare a DB Motion to an Optum Insight. Optum Insight has started to show some stretching pains and some growing pains in their technology stack when it comes to meeting the needs of health information exchanges. Whereas DB Motion has had some challenges with getting customers live, but their technology continues to be one of their greatest strengths. And so now you have a DB Motion who's in a much better position to be forced to be this aggregation vendor instead of this HIE vendor. And so they're in a stronger position than maybe some of the others out there in the market who are doing some of this.
So when I look at DB Motion, I just think, okay, while Allscripts is having challenges winning new hospital inpatient EMR deals, there's some significant upside for them with this DB Motion acquisition, as HIE purchases are fairly significant these days. So when I think about how you guys might be looking at this, Allscripts probably has some nice upside when it comes to this acquisition, their ability to sell their HIE platform to potential customers.
And I think that we've only got 4 minutes here, right, Mitch? So I think we probably better wrap up here.
Yeah, we've got some questions you've asked. We'll go ahead and circle back with you after the webinar and get your questions answered. So don't worry about that. But yeah, we're just about done with time here.
But the bottom line is that you've gotten a perspective on some of the key areas where I'm more of an expert in these areas. We have a lot of other areas that we watch, from imaging, cardiology, claims and clearinghouse services, to a lot of equipment with smart pumps, pharmacy automation, like the AmerisourceBergens, the Omnicell of the world, and to ERP vendors, so the Oracles and the Infor, and there's a lot of different areas that we watch. And a key part of this partnership would be, time to be able to pull in an analyst to answer some of these questions, and hopefully get, as we talk about, hopefully you've gotten a perspective of a kind of a no-spin analysis of what do you see as you go talk to customers, what do you hear? And Fred will continue to be probably the key contact, but we look forward to partnering with you and helping to, we believe the good partnerships that we can build with you are going to make for a better industry. And we're not just saying that. We actually believe that. We've had a few instances where we've been able to share some good information, and we think that it's helped out a number of vendors, or at least made it so some vendors aren't stealing the limelight from others who really should be getting a little bit more attention because of the good things that they're doing. So we appreciate your time today. As Mitch says, we'll circle back around and answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Taylor. Thanks, everyone who's been on the call today. As Taylor's mentioned, I will circle back and just ask for some of your feedback on today's webinar. Just make sure that it was useful and insightful to you. And also make sure that you have the opportunity to claim the best-in-class report that we have there, tell you the best ways to leverage that and how other firms are working with us. But sincerely, we appreciate your time today. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.